Okay, welcome back to Strength Coach Tutorials, and in today's tutorial I'm going to show you how to create these athlete gauge graphs. What these do is, as I select a new athlete, you can see that the values fill up the gauge in different levels from 0 to 100, and down the left hand side I also have filters to change any of the gauges to different scores that I want to display. This is going to be a really useful visualization for any of your athlete monitoring dashboards or maybe some of your fitness testing result presentations. So let's get after it. Okay, so here we are. We're getting started with a sheet with a table on it, and as is usually the case with most of these data viz type videos, we have to start with the actual data. And all I've gone ahead and done before the video started is just created a table with the different testing scores that I want to put values in for, and then created another set of those tests so that I can actually input now a score for them, and we'll get to that in a few minutes. But before we get too far into this here, just a quick reminder that if you are finding any value in these videos, please like and subscribe to the channel, and if you could share these videos on social media, that really helps the channel grow, as well as it helps me dedicate more time towards this channel and allows me to create more content to help out coaches. So without that out of the way, let's get after this video now. So the first thing we're going to do is we're actually just going to input our athlete names. So I'll just go athlete 1, athlete 2, athlete 3, athlete 4, athlete 5. And then the next thing we're going to do is actually create our data. And to do that, we're going to use a function called Randbetween that we've used in other videos, but we're going to do it a little bit differently here. So I'm going to give you a 100 value, so that'll be the top value, and a 0 value for each of these tests. So I'll just kind of do that now, and that'll be really important here in a second for our Randbetween, and also for when we convert our values to values out of 100. So we're going to use this function, and it's going to be equals Randbetween. Open that up, and it's going to ask me for the bottom value, so we'll just choose our 0 value here, which is in J1, and I'm going to want to drag this, so I'm just going to lock in the 1 with a $sign, then comma, my top value is going to be our 100% value, our 100 points. Lock that 2 in, and I will just close those brackets, and you can see that it's going to fill that all in. And if I drag this across, because of the way we locked it, it's going to pick each of the tests. So I'll just fill in all those values now, and I'm just double clicking in the box on the right corner, and that just fills everything in all the way down. And then I'll just copy all of these and paste them as values so that they don't keep updating every time that we make a calculation in the sheet, as the Randbetween function tends to do. So now we have actual numbers in there, okay? So now what we have to do is actually convert these to a score. The formula that I'm going to use is value minus 0 values over 100 value minus 0 value, and then multiply the whole thing by 100. And what this is going to do is convert each one of these scores to a point on a chart, basically. So if I was to have my 0 value here, and that was worth 0 points, and then my 100 value over here, and let's say for the example, the bench press, this would be a value of 50, and this would be a value of 150. Then what we want to be able to do using this formula is, say if we took athlete, let's say athlete 5, because 53 is not a very good example. So if we took athlete 5, they have a value of 135. So 135 is going to sit somewhere in here, and along this line it'll sit somewhere in here. So if you thought right here was maybe say 50 points, that would be basically about 85 or 90, about there. So 135 sits up about here, so it's probably around 70-ish points, because it's this many values kind of across. So let's type in this formula and see kind of what it looks like. So we'll go equals the bench 1RM minus the 0 value, and I'm going to put that all in a bracket, and then divide it by the 100 value minus the 0 value. Put that all in a bracket. Multiply that by 100 and hit OK. And what you'll see is it's actually converted those two scores out of 100. Oh, that's why. Okay. So a quick note on the formula, you can see that it looks kind of funky. What we need to do is these formulas right here, like we did before, because as it goes down, it's moving the cell reference. I just need to lock in all of these values in the first formula, so all of the row numbers, so that it's not moving down. So I'll hit enter, and you can see now it's converted those all to a value out of 100. And if I was to input the actual 100 value, it would give me a score of 100. Okay, and let's put it, so I was pretty close. Our 135 value was a value of about 85. Okay, so let's put in, but the cool thing about this formula is if somebody were to score over that, so let's say they scored 160, it's going to give me a value over 100, so we can sort of tally up those points. So I'll put this back to 110. That's just a simple stats trick to convert testing scores to a value out of 100, and then you would just set your 100 value and your 0 value. I'm going to drag this across because of the way we've set up our formula. It should work. And you can see that it's now referencing the deadlift and the squat, etc. And then if I do the same thing that I did before, we can just convert these all to values out of 100. Now we've converted all of these to values out of 100 using that little stats trick that we had before. And I'll just highlight that so that I know where that kind of is. So now what I want to do is I want to take these values and actually graph those as a representation of the actual fitness testing scores that the athletes obtained. So we'll go over to our visualization sheet and we're going to type some things in here. The first thing that I'm going to want to do is just put in the athlete name. So we'll do a drop down box for that, and we'll go to data. Oh, sorry, we should name our table first. So if I name my table, I'll go to table. I'll name it TBL underscore scores so that I know what my table is called when I'm referencing. Go back to my visualization. I'll go data, data validation, and I'll go to list. And I'm going to use a function that I've used a lot. I'll say indirect, and then open up some quotations, TBL underscore scores. And then I know that my first column is athlete names. Close that off and close off my quotations, and then close all of that off. And then I'll hit OK. And because I'm now referencing a table column, you'll see that I'm actually able to select any of my athlete names. And I'll do the same thing down here. I'll put in my KPIs. And I'm going to do 4 of them. So I'll highlight the next 4 cells yellow. And I'm going to put in my data validation. So I'll go data, data validation, list equals indirect, reference my table again. So I'll go quotations, TBL underscore scores. And then I want to reference the header column. So I'm going to go square bracket, hashtag headers, because that's how you reference the headers row in a table. I'll put a quotation, close the whole thing off, and hit OK. And now if that worked properly, I should be able to pull out any of my actual KPI scores. So I'll drag that down. So that's how we kind of do that. And I'm just going to clean this up a little bit with a little bit of borders. So I'm going to give that red. Give it a light gray color, center it, and bold it. And then I'll copy that and I'll paste the actual formatting here. And then I'll give these some borders as well. So just a quick note to paste formatting. If I was to copy this, I can right click anywhere and then just paste the actual formatting. And that allows me to just paste the colors and the justification of the text and everything like that. Now, the next thing that we have to do is actually pull out those scores from our table based on our selections. So we're going to pull out the actual score and then the 100 value. In this case, it's always going to be 100 in our graph because we've converted our scores to a value out of 100. So the maximum score would be sort of 100. Then to pull out our score, we're going to use a filter function. So it's going to look like this, equals filter, indirect. Open that up, and what is I'll do it this way. It's going to be equals filter, and then we'll go to indirect because we're going to want to reference this cell instead of just any table reference. And I'm going to put quotations, TBL underscore scores, open that bracket up, finish my quotations here because I'm going to add a reference now. use the and function, and then reference the cell, then another and function, then start my quotations again to put in my final square bracket, and then finish off those quotations. So it looks like this: TBL underscore scores, open square bracket, quotation, and B6, and quotation, square bracket, quotation. I know that's a mouthful. So then from there, that's the table reference that I want to make. And what do I want to happen? I want to reference that when it's TBL underscore scores, athlete name is equal to our athlete name that we've chosen, and I'm going to lock that in with F4 to put dollar signs around that to lock that in. And then if it's not found, what I want to do is actually show nothing, and then I'll close all of that off. I just have one over here where I have to close off my actual indirect. If it's not found, I'll find nothing, and then I'll hit enter. So what you're going to notice is now that's actually able to pull out that score, because what we're doing is we're referencing the actual choice that we make, and then we're only pulling it out if the athlete name matches. So when I hit enter, because of the way I've set this up, I should be able to drag this, and we'll know it works if I choose different scores and the value changes, and it seems like it's going to work. Now the last thing that we want to clean up is this function here, where we actually have a 63.63.63.63. So we'll go back to our actual table, and I'm going to wrap this whole sort of formula in an M round formula. So if I go to the first one and go M round, and then open that up, and then at the end, comma, what's the multiple I actually want to round everything to? I'm going to say 0.5. So it's going to round everything to a multiple of 0.5, and I'll hit enter. And I should be able to sort of drag that down and maybe drag it across, and everything should now just update to a multiple of 0.5, and that's just going to make everything a little cleaner. So you can see my 63.5 used to be 63.63.63 or whatever it was, so now it's 63.5. Okay, so now all we have to do is create our actual visualizations, and that's kind of the easy part. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to highlight these two, the score and the 48, and I'm going to go to insert. We'll go to recommended charts, but I already know what kind I want. It's this clustered bar chart. If we go to bar chart, it's called the clustered bar chart, and I'm going to hit OK. And it's going to give me this chart that looks kind of like this. Now from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another series. So I'm going to hit right click and select data, and I'm going to add the series name. We're going to call it 100, and the series values, we're going to give it a value of 100 and hit OK. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to actually overlap these two columns so that we can create that visualization that we had in the actual intro. But before I do that, I need to just play around with the scale, because I'm going to actually delete this after, so that all we're left with is this chart. So we know that the max value that we're going to be able to get is 100, but just so that we have a little bit of room on the end, I'm going to make it 105, and then my minus value is going to be -5, and I'm going to hit OK. And all that does is sort of center out the chart, and we'll know that the max is still going to only ever be 100, but because of where we've set our actual maximums and minimums values, we have 105 and -5. And the way that I did that is I just clicked on the actual scale down here, and it gives me the option under access options to select what I want everything to be. And from there, now that I have that set, I can actually just delete that and make it go away. I'm going to take the series now, and we can select any one of these series. And what I can do is, if I go over here to series options, I'm going to use these functions here called series overlap, and I'm going to actually make that 100. So what you can see now is it's actually sort of put my series on top of the other one. And then for gap width, we're just going to go 25. And what that's going to do is just sort of expand our series out so that it takes up almost the whole sort of visualization, and it'll look better when we make it smaller. Then we can kind of delete everything else from our chart that we don't need just by selecting it. So we just sort of select what we want and then hit delete. And now we'll take these series and kind of overlap them on each other. So the best way to do this is we're selecting the top one here, and I'm going to go to fill in line. I'm going to give it no fill, so you can see that it's kind of disappeared. But under border, I'm going to give it a solid line that's black, and we'll make it a lot bigger. So we'll make it maybe, I don't know, 2.25. So now you can see sort of what that looks like. And if I was to change the score, you can see how that other one looks inside of it. And it's starting to give us that effect that we're kind of looking for. What I'll do is I can actually select up here under series options. I'm going to select my score series, and I'm going to give that sort of a red color. And I'm going to make the transparency, let's say 75, because now it looks sort of like it's sort of nested inside there. And then the last piece that I want to add to this is a title. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to go up to chart design at the top, add chart element, and we'll go to chart title, and I'm going to put one above the chart. And in the chart title, I'm going to put equals, and then select the cell where that lives. So now as I change this, the chart title is actually going to change as well. So you can see how that works. And then I'll just bold this and maybe give it a different font. Let's say Arial Rounded, maybe make it a tiny bit bigger. So now it looks pretty good. And from here, I can go to Format and hit Align, and I'm just going to snap it to grid. And I've just sort of prearranged the spot where I want these charts to go. And I'll just sort of put it in this grid here. We'll turn on Snap to Grid. I think I might have turned it off. So Align, we'll go Snap to Grid, and I'll snap it in there. And then just close it off. So now you can see we have the broad score in there, and as we change that, it's going to give us sort of that effect that we're looking for. And the last thing that we have to do is I'm going to want to hide these values here. And what you're going to notice is as soon as I do that, the whole chart disappears. So the way that I change that is I'm going to right click on where the chart is and go to Select Data. And there's an option for what to do on hidden and empty cells. I'll click that, and I'm going to click Show Data in Hidden and Empty Cells. And then I'll hit OK, and now it shows back up. So now you're not really going to see the data, you're just going to see the actual sort of chart. So from there, all we have to do now is I'm going to unhide these cells because it'll make things easier in a second. From there, all we have to do is copy this chart, Control C, and then I'm going to select in the next box and Control V, and I can select my series now. And you're going to see it gives me the series up in the formula bar, and all I have to do is change the number. So instead of 6, I want it to go to 7. I'll hit OK. And instead of, well, this one doesn't really matter, but again, instead of 6, I'll make it go to 7 and hit OK. And instead of referencing B6, I want that to be on B7, so it's my squat jump score. And you can see what it's done is it's actually screwed up my chart a little bit and made all the colors sort of reset. So I'm going to show you a quick, simple hack to sort of make this chart look the way you want again. So the easy way to do that is I'm going to select the chart that I like the way that it looks, and I'm going to right click on it. And there's an option to save as a template. And now it's going to give me the option to save this chart, and I'm going to call it Video Chart 1. Hit Save. And now what I can do is under this chart, I can right click it and hit Change Chart Type. And I have an option for templates, and I can change it to Video Chart 1, hit OK, and it automatically changes everything back to the way that I want it, which is pretty cool. And that's an easy way using chart templates to actually make your charts look the way you want. And the only thing that we have to fix is it's just given the title. It's taken away the dynamic reference from the title. So we just select the title, and I'll hit equals, and then I'll go squat jump score and hit OK. And I'm just going to copy this chart and paste it again. And I'll fix my values. Instead of 7, now I want 8. And for this one, instead of 7, now I want 8. And I'm going to change chart type, templates, Video Chart 1, hit OK. And I'll put my title to where I actually want it, hit OK. And I'll do that whole process one more time. Paste that in there. Instead of 8, now I want 9. And instead of 8, now I want 9. And for my title, well, I'll change chart type first. Change chart type, templates, video chart 1, hit OK, and I'll put my title to what I actually want it to be. And so that's how you do it. So now as I hide these, all of these should work because we've saved that in the chart type, and I should be able to select an athlete and it automatically updates all of their gauges. And if I wanted to change any of my scores for any reason, it's really easy to do that and get the visualization sort of the way that I want it. So I hope this video helps you out and that you start to use these visualizations in some of your own projects. And if you have any ideas for future videos, feel free to post them in the comments below and I'll do my best to kind of create those sheets in the future. I'm always looking for new ideas for videos. And one last reminder, please like and subscribe to the channel, tell your friends, and I will see you in the next video.